ranked choice voting has always been a mystery to me, even now, after all these years that we voted this way. And explaining it to the limited English speaking seniors that my organization serves is really more difficult. But thanks to Eve and Angelica and Catherine at the San Francisco Elections Office, they really do have bilingual workers that are very diligent and very conscientious. So every time, before a major election, before an election, Catherine and her colleagues would actually come to our 14 senior centers and speak again about ranked choice. And if you make a mistake, on your ballot, what do you do? And then how do you make sure, that for our community, for the limited English speakers, they always have a very high sense of what is right. And the seniors will say, I'm afraid to vote because I don't want to make a mistake and make it wrong. So we have to continuously tell them, you have to vote with your heart, and there's no right or wrong. It would just want you to express, how you stand on certain issues and on which candidate that would represent your value. So once we get that through, then it's a lot easier. And when Sandy and I were chit-chatting earlier, I said that many times, my seniors would really come to me and say, I like to vote and I understand maybe half of the ballot measures, but I really don't know whether I should vote yes or no. Sometimes these ballots are written in a way that's very tricky as well. So at times like these, I would say, if you really want to skip certain ballots that you're not comfortable of voting on, then just don't vote on it, but make sure that you express your opinion on the candidates that you value the most, and then on issues that make the most sense to you. So don't just give up not voting at all because one or two questions, might stop you right there. So I hope that would also increase our voters' participation. I think just as background, I think San Francisco passed our language access ordinance sometime in 2001. And I think they amended and strengthened this language access ordinance in 2015 again, making it actually much stronger and more protection for our limited English speakers. And I think since that time, you all know that our ballot already is in English, Spanish, and Chinese, and Tagalog, right, Filipino language. But if you actually ask the election officer to help you with other language, like even Burmese, Vietnamese, Korean, right, Japanese, Eve, all these languages are also available. There are some ballots that they could mail to you if you request for this assistance. And I think there's a lot of nonprofit organizations stand ready to help our limited English speakers to understand the ballots, right, of what the ballots actually mean. We cannot ask people how to vote, but we could definitely encourage them to find sources for the information. So like, for example, at Self-Help, we always actually invite the League of Women Voters to do a forum in some of our senior centers, like we're doing one today for the San Mateo seniors, so that seniors could actually get the run of the ballots as well as the candidates, and then ask questions from neutral sources. So I think that's how we try to really encourage a lot of our seniors and a lot of our Chinese-speaking community to register to vote, and also to remember to vote on the election day. About 10 years ago, I walked around to all the senior centers asking how many are registered voters, right? Just by show of hand. Usually, very few hands will be raised. But in about 10, 15 years, now I walk into my senior centers and I would have to say a majority of our seniors' hands would be raised. So that means that in the past 10, 15 years with the language access help, ballot in their own language, I did think that now, I think that the Chinese and Asian voters is a critical block for the past many elections. I think particularly when we have candidates that represent our community, right, speak the language have our culture. And I think those are what Professor mentioned as popular candidates, right? Because they do go around and meet up with the community. So it kind of drums up the voting interest as well. A lot of our community really comes from background that politics is not good, right? If I get involved in politics, I'll be either persecuted or put in jail, or, you know, like something terrible is going to happen to me and my family. So when it comes to expressing a political view, they're actually quite secretive and not wanting to share, you know, what they think really in here. So we actually have to do quite a bit in raising the awareness of how's the funding that comes to our organization that continue to serve the nutritious and the hot meals, right, at our senior centers. How do we do citizenship classes if we don't get federal funding to support immigration and citizenship work? Things like that. So we backtrack a little bit and start with civic kind of education and engagement. We actually take seniors to attend city hall meetings, either budget meetings or when certain issues involving affordable housing, transportation, right, social services, we actually bring them down to city hall. Or even in the district supervisors meetings, we actually encourage and actually facilitate our seniors to go and express their views directly to the legislators. So that opens up, you know, the more frank discussion. I always have the question of why Jane Kim came so close, you know, with Mark Leno, but never the votes got enough to win the either candidates, because they were pairing up, right, for the campaign. So when a few years ago, when the candidates start to pair up and say, you could support me, but you could also support my second choice. So that seems to work with our community. And they feel that, you know, they're not locked into one candidate, but then there's now a little bit of a more collective. Maybe that might help Sandy to talk to some of your friends. And if they don't want to share who they are supporting, we said that's fine too, as long as they go and vote.